Okay, so today we're diving into a story that's been making headlines. Um, Big implications for geopolitics and energy security. It's the shutdown of Russia's gas pipeline that goes through Ukraine.
Mm,
You might be thinking like, why should I care about some pipeline, but trust me, this is a big deal.
it really is. This is like textbook international relations and economics.
Exactly. And especially if you're preparing for the UPSC exams, this is like a case study ripped from the headlines.
Absolutely.
So imagine this, a pipeline stretching all the way from Siberia, part of Russia's energy resources across continents, carrying natural gas that powers homes and industries all across Europe.
Yeah,
Now picture that pipeline suddenly going dark.
right.
That's exactly what happened on New Year's Day, when Russia's oldest gas route to Europe, the one running through Ukraine, shut down after the transit deal between the two nations expired.
Yeah, and it's not just about Russia and Ukraine. This shutdown has the potential to impact energy prices, supply chains, and even political alliances across the globe.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Big deal. And again, for those of you studying for the UPSC exams, this is a gold mine of real-world examples for understanding how all of this stuff is intertwined.
It is. So let's unpack this a little bit.
Yeah.
This pipeline, officially known as the Urengoy-Pommery-Uzhgorod pipeline, has been a major artery for Russian gas flowing into Europe for decades.
For decades.
It starts in the Siberian gas fields, traverses through Ukraine, and reaches Slovakia, where it then branches out to other parts of Europe.
Right.
For a long time, this pipeline wasn't just an energy conduit. It was a symbol of Russia's dominance in the European energy market.
Absolutely.
And to understand the weight of this closure, you really need to appreciate that historical context.
Yeah, you have to.
It represented a time when Russia held a significant grip on Europe's energy supply.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about the smaller players that are caught in the crosshairs.
Right.
Consider Transnistria,
Yeah.
a breakaway region of Moldova that is entirely dependent on Russian gas flowing through this very pipeline for its energy needs.
For everything.
It's a stark reminder of how energy dependence can become a geopolitical lever.
Absolutely. And this closure didn't occur in a vacuum. This comes after a steady and dramatic decline in the volume of Russian gas flowing through Ukraine.
Right.
We're talking about a drop from 65 billion cubic meters in 2020 to less than 14 billion cubic meters by the end of last year.
Wow. That's a massive reduction. What does that tell us about the overall picture of Russia's influence in the European energy market?
Well, it reflects a significant shift in power dynamics.
Uh-huh.
Russia's share of the European gas market has plummeted from a commanding 35% before the invasion of Ukraine to a mere 8% today. This pipeline closure just solidifies that trend.
So that's a huge hit, not just in terms of influence, but also financially, right?
Absolutely. We're talking about significant financial repercussions for both sides. Ukraine, for example, stands to lose transit fees, which are essentially payments for allowing the gas to pass through its territory. These fees were estimated to be between $800 million to $1 billion annually for Ukraine.
So for those listening who may not be familiar with the term transit fees, those are essentially rent that Russia pays to Ukraine for using its pipeline infrastructure. Losing that income is a considerable blow to Ukraine's economy, especially given the ongoing conflict.
Exactly. And for Russia, the potential loss in gas sales is estimated to be nearly $5 billion. This pipeline closure directly impacts Gazprom, the state-controlled energy giant that relies heavily on these European exports.
So this shutdown further weakens Russia's grip on the European energy market and hits them where it hurts their wallets.
Yeah.
But it also raises a critical question. How is the EU coping with this sudden shift in energy supply?
Right.
This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about keeping the lights on across Europe.
Keeping the heat on, keeping everything going. The EU's response has been multifaceted. They've been strategically diversifying their energy sources to reduce their reliance on Russian gas. One key move has been to ramp up imports of liquefied natural gas, or LNG, from countries like Norway, the US, and Qatar.
So basically, they're shopping around for new energy suppliers.
Yeah.
That seems like a smart move, but how feasible is it to replace that much Russian gas with LNG? Isn't that a huge logistical challenge?
Oh, it is a challenge, there's no doubt. LNG requires specialized infrastructure for liquefaction, transportation, and regasification.
Right. It's a whole process.
It is a whole process, and the EU has been investing in LNG terminals and infrastructure for some time now, anticipating this very scenario. They knew that over-reliance on a single supplier, especially one as volatile as Russia, posed a significant risk.
So this pipeline closure, while disruptive in the short term, could actually accelerate the EU's transition towards a more diversified and potentially more sustainable energy future.
Exactly. And the EU has set ambitious targets for renewable energy adoption, and this situation could provide the impetus to achieve those goals faster. However, it's important to acknowledge that this transition won't be without its challenges. There could be price fluctuations in the short term as the market adjusts to these new dynamics. Energy security and affordability are delicate balancing acts.
Volatility is never a good thing, especially when it comes to something as essential as energy. But hasn't the EU been preparing for this for a while now? They knew this pipeline closure was a possibility, right?
Yeah, they've been quite proactive. Their diversification efforts, investments in renewable energy, and strategic gas reserves all help mitigate major disruptions. They've also been fostering stronger partnerships with alternative suppliers. For example, the U.S. has significantly increased its LNG exports to Europe, playing a crucial role in filling the gap left by Russia.
So this situation is a good example of how international relations and energy security are intertwined. The EU's response to this energy crisis is a case study in strategic planning and adaptability, something that's definitely worth noting if you're preparing for the UPSC exams.
Absolutely. And it's not just about national level responses. This situation underscores the importance of international cooperation. We've seen countries within the EU collaborating, sharing resources, and supporting each other through this transition. Think about the Czech Republic, for instance. They've been very proactive, tapping into German pipelines to secure their supply, and even supporting Slovakia with transit, demonstrating a strong sense of solidarity within the EU.
That's a great example. But what about the countries that were heavily reliant on the Ukrainian pipeline, like Austria and Slovakia? How are they managing?
Well, both Austria and Slovakia have been diligently working on securing alternative supplies. They've managed to reduce their dependence on Russian gas through a combination of diversification efforts, including increasing imports from other sources and tapping into existing pipeline networks.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about Moldova, specifically Transnistria, which we mentioned earlier.
Right.
They were heavily reliant on Russian gas through this very pipeline. Their situation seems a lot more precarious.
You're right. Moldova faces a unique challenge. They're heavily reliant on Russian gas, particularly for electricity generation. Their plan is to drastically reduce their gas consumption by a third one, which is a significant undertaking. It highlights the complexities of this energy transition and how different countries face varying levels of vulnerability and have different capacities to adapt.
Absolutely. It's like a real-world puzzle, where each country is trying to find the right pieces to fit their energy needs while navigating these geopolitical shifts.
Speaking of which, let's shift our focus to Russia for a moment. They've lost a major revenue stream with this pipeline closure. How are they coping with the economic fallout?
Well, there's no doubt that Russia is feeling the economic pinch. The loss of this pipeline, coupled with the sanctions imposed after the invasion of Ukraine, has put significant pressure on their economy. They still have other gas pipelines, like the Turkstream pipeline, which supplies gas to Turkey, Hungary, and Serbia, but those don't have the same reach or capacity as the one that ran through Ukraine. And we know that the EU is actively working to reduce its reliance on Russian gas altogether, which shrinks Russia's potential market even further. What does this mean for Gazprom, the energy giant that was so heavily reliant on those European exports?
Well, Gazprom is facing a difficult future. They're grappling with a shrinking market share and are forced to explore new markets for their gas. We're seeing them increase their energy cooperation with China as well as explore options in other Asian markets.
So as Europe turns toward renewables and diversifies its energy sources, Russia is looking eastward. It's like a geopolitical dance, with each side adjusting their steps in response to the other's moves. This pipeline closure might have seemed like a regional event, but it's clear that it has ripple effects that extend far beyond the borders of Europe. It really underscores the interconnectedness of our world, something that's crucial for understanding global events, especially if you're preparing for the UPSC exams.
I completely agree. This event is a microcosm of the larger trends shaping global politics and economics. It highlights the importance of understanding energy security, international relations, and the complex interplay of national interests on the world stage.
Well said. We've explored the historical context, the immediate impact, and the potential long-term consequences of this pipeline closure. It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but by analyzing it, we gain valuable insights into the forces shaping our world. Yeah, it's fascinating to see how a single event like this pipeline closure can act as a catalyst for such significant shifts in the global energy landscape.
Absolutely. It underscores how energy is not just about supply and demand. You
Yeah.
know, it's interwoven with geopolitics, economics, and even environmental concerns. This situation has forced countries to reevaluate their energy strategies, dependencies, and priorities.
Yeah. And for those of you listening who are preparing for the UPSC exams, this is where it gets really interesting. How do you see this event influencing India's energy strategy? India is a major energy consumer and importer. How should it navigate this shifting global energy landscape?
Well, that's a great question. And India, like many other countries, is striving to balance its energy needs with its sustainability goals. This situation highlights the importance of diversification, both in terms of energy sources and suppliers. You know,
Right.
Over-reliance on any single source or supplier can create vulnerabilities, as we've seen in this case.
Right. So potentially looking at expanding partnerships with countries like the U.S. for LNG imports, while also continuing to invest heavily in renewable energy sources
No.
like solar and wind power.
Absolutely. It's about creating a resilient and balanced energy mix that can withstand geopolitical shocks and contribute to a more sustainable future.
And thinking beyond just India, this shift towards cleaner energy sources raises another big question. How will this event shape the future of geopolitics and international relations in general? Will we see new alliances formed, new conflicts emerge?
It's certainly a possibility. As the world transitions away from fossil fuels, we might see a shift in power dynamics. Countries with abundant renewable energy resources could gain leverage, while those heavily reliant on fossil fuel exports might face economic and political challenges. This could lead to new alliances and partnerships, as well as potential conflicts over resources and influence.
It's a fascinating time to be studying international relations, that's for sure. The world is changing right before our eyes, and understanding these energy dynamics is key to understanding the bigger picture.
And for UPSC aspirants, analyzing events like this pipeline closure provides invaluable insights. It's about connecting the dots between energy security economics, international relations, and even environmental sustainability. It's about developing a nuanced understanding of how these forces interact and shape the world we live in.
Well said. We've explored the historical context, the immediate impact, and the potential long-term consequences of this pipeline closure. It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but by analyzing it, we gain valuable insights into the forces shaping our world. And for those of you listening who are on that UPSC journey, remember, it's not just about memorizing facts and figures. It's about developing those analytical skills, your critical thinking, and your ability to see the interconnectedness of global events. And if you're enjoying these deep dives into current events, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like. We'll be back with more insightful analyses to help you navigate the complexities of our world. Until then, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.